This video is going to focus on some things that we should consider while giving a persuasive presentation.
We are always persuading, and persuasion is something that we start to learn when we're really young.
If you think about it, when you ask your parents for anything, you're trying to persuade them to give it to you. So if you go to your parents and you ask them for a little more money for something that you want, you're persuading your parents to give you that money. You're giving them reasons why they should give you something. Something like a job interview is all about persuasion. You're persuading the people across from you to choose you and not other people who are applying for that job.
We all use persuasive techniques to maybe get a girl to go on a date with you, or maybe to get your boyfriend to see the movie you want to see. But what is a persuasive presentation? A persuasive presentation is your opinion supported by facts or expert opinions. For a persuasive presentation, there are three basic types of questions that we can ask. We can question a policy, whether that policy is good or bad. We can question the value of something. Is it moral or immoral? We can question a fact. Is it true or maybe not true?
Questions of policy focus on a change of a law or a procedure. So for example, is it fair that smokers have to pay such a high tax on cigarettes? If people want to change the amount of tax on the cigarettes, that is a question of policy. Questions of value ask the question, is it right or wrong? Is it moral or immoral? So for example, should we eat meat or should we not eat meat? This questions the value of something, the value of the life of an animal compared to the value of the enjoyment or the nutrition that we get from the animal. And the last one is questions of fact. This is fact versus misinformation or misconception. So for example, we can ask, did man really land on the moon? Now, usually in debates, we focus more on questions of value and of policy. However, in today's society, with more and more misinformation out there, we have to start questioning the facts also.
When we're trying to persuade, we really have to think about our audience. And I'll give you an example from my life. If I wanted something like to go out and play with my friends, I would definitely ask my mom and not my dad. My mom was much more likely to say yes, that I can go out and play with my friends. However, if I wanted money, I would ask my dad, because my dad would often just give me spending money to go out, eat, things like that. So I really thought about my audience and who I should ask in order to get what I want.
In the 1950s and 60s, whites and African Americans were very segregated in some parts of America, which means that they had separate schools, separate restaurants, separate buses, and such. Now, when people saw a picture like this during that time, it made many people very angry because many people felt very strongly for or against interracial marriages. Now, if you think about it, most people are pretty okay with interracial marriage. We don't really think of it as a big problem or a big deal anymore. But today, we have some issues like gay marriage. Gay marriage, some people feel very strongly for or against gay marriage. Now, I don't really care. It's 100% your prerogative to feel however you want to feel. But you have to realize that in a situation where people feel very strongly about something, it's going to be much harder to persuade them. Now, if I was to give a presentation to try to influence you that Takashima is actually a Japanese island and not a Korean island, well, that probably won't go over very well because everyone in the class is going to believe that Dokdo is a Korean island. So there's no way for me to persuade you you're thinking one way or the other. You already have a strong belief about something.
However, many people actually fall in the middle of the spectrum. We're not 100% for or 100% against something. We might feel for or against, but we still can keep an open mind and listen to information, and maybe our minds will change over time. I would tell you my mind has definitely changed over time on certain issues. So these are the people that we want to try to persuade. The people who are kind of in the middle, whether they're kind of for or against an issue, those are the people that you can maybe persuade.
Just remember, by definition, a persuasive presentation are going to have people who disagree with you. Not everyone's going to agree with you, right? Because you're persuading someone to feel a certain way. So whatever you do, just remember to be polite. Understand that there are reasons why people feel the way they feel. People feel strongly about many issues in the world, for or against something. For example, Takashima or Dokdo Island. So when we get emotional, sometimes we forget some very basic things, like to be polite to each other. So being persuasive does not mean you stop listening to the other person, or that you say you're better than the other person. And it definitely does not mean that you make other people feel stupid. Remember, they're not stupid for how they feel, but just because of their education, their background, they have a different feeling than you, a different point of view or perspective.
When we watch things on the news, sometimes we see people yelling at each other and thinking that they're being persuasive, but they're not. You're not going to change someone else's mind by making them feel stupid for what they believe in. So really what being persuasive is listening to the other person's side, trying to really consider their feelings and try to understand why they have the beliefs they have. If you can fully understand why someone feels the way they do, it is going to be much easier for you then to start to persuade them.